Doing?
Good.
Yeah. All right. It's almost football season here. Yeah, excited to get started. These guys have worked really hard, the staff and the players. In terms of the off-season program, their conditioning and all that. So we're excited to get out on the field. We've got a couple of days here of acclimation, so it'll be not our full training camp practices yet, but it's just part of the process and give everybody a good opportunity to get acclimated both on the field and with their teammates, communication, adjustments, things like that. We have a lot of new players, 40, a little over 40 from the spring, and 70 from 70 guys that weren't on last year's team. So, it's a lot of new people to get up to speed again in terms of communication. Just kind of the way we practice, techniques, things like that. But coaches have done a good job of closing that gap, and so we're excited to get out on the field and see it start coming together. So that process, as I said, will start today, and we'll build through the acclimation period, and then really get rolling into it next week. But I think these steps are the ones that obviously we need to take and that are required, and so we'll be in compliance with them.
We'll start right here in the center.
Andrew Jones starting 24/7.
Vinny.
Among the new things that you've had to deal with this year, now you have a training camp in which you won't be able to see your team against somebody else. That's obviously different for you. Is there something you can do to approach it that way, where you can learn as much as you can without having that benefit of seeing them against somebody else? Because the first game was the first live action, essentially.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, and I've talked to a lot of college coaches about that, and I think there's a little bit more of a, especially for us, a little bit more of an unknown, because even the guys that were here, they weren't here with us, and how exactly they'll react in game situations and under pressure, and how quickly and easily we'll be able to adjust or not adjust and all that. We're gonna have to find out that on the run, but it's the same for every other team, so we'll work against ourselves to a point, and then at some point we'll start doing some of the things that we'll see from our opponents, starting with TCU. And that's, what we do is a little bit different than what some other teams do, but we need to work on what we need to work on, and then we'll transition into a game week.
Second quick question, do you get excited anymore, and are you excited about it?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, we spent a lot of time, Mike and I spent a lot of time along with the scouts and the coaches of putting the team together, team building. That started with the wrap up of the 25 recruiting class, then the early portal in January, then a couple of late 25 add-ons who have come, and then obviously the spring portal, and we're still transitioning through one or two guys here at the end of the roster. So to see all those guys come together, to see the players who are here train hard and make significant improvements in their strength, explosion, and speed. And then what work we have been able to do collectively is been very encouraging. These guys are bought in, they're working hard. It's exciting to see what they're going to be able to do on the field. So, yeah, very much looking forward to it.
Right behind him here.
Aaron Beard with the AP, your presence has brought a lot of attention to this program. Everything you're doing is getting magnified and attention-wise nationally.
Really?
Imagine that. But for the players, it's a different challenge for the players where the spotlight may be on them more than it's ever been before, partly because you'll be on the sideline. I mean, how do you manage that with a group of guys that are young and say, keep it from being something that's suffocating where any screw up could be magnified just because of your presence here?
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, regardless of, and I appreciate where you're coming from on that, but honestly, for all of us, it's control what we can control. Whoever's here or isn't here, that's out of our control. We have a job to do. We have a lot of work to accomplish, and we need to come together and build our team, both on and off the field, our chemistry, our communication, and of course our execution on the field. And so that's our biggest challenge, and what's external is external, and honestly, a lot of it's just noise. It doesn't, we've seen all the preseason rankings and this and that and all, and it's, great, but that isn't going to affect us. We're going to, compete on Saturdays or Mondays or whatever day it is, and that'll determine what happens, not some predictions or projections or anything else. So we'll just kind of ignore that and move on.
On the right, Brian.
What have you seen out of Max Johnson and just the way he's attacked sort of the recovery from that gruesome thing?
Yeah. Well, we'll start with Max first. Max has done a great job, worked really hard. He's made a tremendous amount of progress throughout the process, but really it's that last, call it 20% between not being able to play and really being ready to play and ready to start training camp, which is where he is now. So he's going to start out there. But he didn't take any meaningful snaps in the spring. He worked out on his own. He threw some routes, but he wasn't involved in any team drills. So it's a big jump for him in terms of what he's able to do, although I think the progression is very gradual. It's 1% at a time, 1% at a time, but at some point, he's crossed that threshold, and so he'll be ready to participate out there with all the other players. Sorry, my memory.
Just the back end of the roster.
Oh yeah, so that's a great question. It's still a little bit of a work in progress. Our scholarships will be under 105. We do have the grandfather clause or rule in where the players that were walk-ons last year get grandfathered in, and so us, probably like most every other college team, will be actually over the 105 with those grandfathered players on. We have some players who are not on scholarship who would be under, let's call it the 105, and obviously most of them will be on scholarship, but there are some guys that are kind of in that gray area. Maybe they can earn a scholarship depending on what their role is and so forth. So from a numbers standpoint, we're in good shape. Like we're not going to have to release players to get to the 105. We already kind of did that in the spring, which was a difficult decision to make. But I think most of those players ended up at other schools, and we'll be playing this fall. So I do think it kind of worked out for them, and that they're in a situation where they'll have a chance to play. But we're not really going to be restricted on the roster size this year. I think it'll probably be something we'll have to work on next year, but for this year, we're actually under it. Thanks. Yeah. Love those bottom of the roster questions. I mean, a lot of people let that stuff go, but honestly, those are important decisions. Some of those players eventually are going to end up helping us. I mean, I just know that's the way it's going to work out. So, to me, those players are just as, I don't know if they're just as important as the top 10, but they're going to be factors on our team and have roles. So, we're constantly trying to make sure we, from top to bottom, do the best we can. Sorry. Yep.
Last row on the left, yep.
Adam Smith, inside Carolina. Hey, Bill.
Adam.
Just wanted to ask you about Freddy Kitchens and him running the offense, installing the offense, and just what that sort of process looks like. You're known as a guy more for defensive side of the ball things in your career. Just what does that look like with him? Putting together this offense, how much input have you had on what you guys want to run offensively, and just sort of that collaboration?
Right. Well, look, I would just say throughout my career, certainly as defensive coordinator, that's definitely been my role. But as a head coach, I've always tried to be involved in every aspect of the game, whether that's offense, defense, special teams, our strength program, our conditioning program, our off-the-field education of the players, and so forth. I think it's important for me to, be a part of all the things that we do and to add emphasis to the players and the coaches or whoever's responsible for those areas. So, whether it's with Mike on special teams or Freddie or Steve, they have a lot of responsibility for the areas that they have. There's no question about that. But, from a team standpoint, I want to collectively put together the best plan and the best role for our players, which sometimes they overlap a little bit. And so in order to do that, I kind of have to, be a part of all of it. But in terms of Freddie, Freddie's a very aggressive coach, wants to, have a physical team, physical running game, physical presence on offense. We just don't want to, run backwards on every play. Like we want to be aggressive and we have, we think we have the players to run that type of offense. I'm sure we're going to have to modify it a little bit. We have good depth at quarterback, and so we'll see how it all plays out. But, Freddie has a lot of experience, spent a lot of time in the NFL. He spent a lot of time in college football. And it's been honestly very helpful for him, for me, that the fact that he was here the last couple of years. So, he has a lot of experience and perspective on some of the things that were done, well, that we can build on, maybe some things that we're changing, how that change might affect just a relative to what's happened in the past. So he's been a great great help and I won't say addition because he was here. We're actually the addition, but for me, he's a great addition to my staff.
Second row on the left.
Yeah, Jeremiah Holloway with Inside Carolina. Bill, of course, talked about Max a second ago, and you alluded to the depth of quarterback. I think with those new guys in there. And you and the staff have a maybe target date of when you want to maybe start, like week before the game, day before the game. You guys have a date when you want to maybe start.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. We don't have a specific date. I think the time will be when we're sure. In my experience as a coach has been, at that position where you're, you want to define who that is, and what you generally don't want to do is pick player A and then end up going to player B, let them compete, and then once you're sure it's player B, make it player B or player A, whoever it goes. So I think once we're confident that we know who has earned that spot, because that's what it'll be. It's not us picking them. It'll be that player earning it. Then we'll decide on that. If it's clear cut, then that player will be the player. If it's not clear cut, maybe the competition will continue into the early part of the season. And I've done that before more at other positions than quarterback, but it could also be a quarterback where we'll see how it goes in the early part of the season. And if the performance, again, whoever earns it is going to be who gets it. That's the bottom line. Nobody's entitled to it. Nobody's been given anything. The player who plays the best and earns that playing time will get it. And I don't know who that's going to be. That'll be up to them. But it would certainly be good to have that done before the first game, and maybe even 2 weeks before the first game. The sooner the better. But it's better to make the right decision than a quick decision. So that's what we'll try to do. But that's one of the key questions we have to answer.
We have time for a couple more. Back center.
Ron Maxley, Fayetteville Observer. Bill, with so many unknowns and new players, what does the preseason checklist, so to speak, look like as far as progression throughout these next few weeks, the tackling plan and all that stuff?
Yeah, the biggest thing is evaluate the team. That's what we have to do, evaluate the team. We sort of have an idea of what the players who are here that were here in the spring can do. But again, I'd say a lot of those players have shown significant improvement, particularly in their strength conditioning, their explosion, their speed, and their techniques that they've been working on from the spring coaching. And so we'll see what that looks like. But then evaluate the other players, the many new faces that we have here, and see what kind of role they can carve out for themselves, and and how we can utilize them once we have a better understanding of their skills. I mean, we can see them. Whether it was transfer players or in some cases freshmen that are coming in, we have an idea what their skills are and think, hey, maybe this player can do certain things and this player can do certain things, but until they actually get out on the field and prove it and earn it, but we'll give them a chance, but they'll have to earn that over somebody else who is probably vying for the same role. So big thing for us in the next, I'd say 10 days is to evaluate the team and then start to fine tune it from there.
Right, front row.
Grant Sasher, Targets on that side. Your resume speaks for itself when it comes to evaluating talent at the highest levels, but when you're assessing high school athletes, players who are developing physically, mentally, and fundamentally, what makes that process more challenging? Evaluating college and college transfers from high school athletes, but also, are there any specific indicators that you look for when it comes to evaluating?
Yeah, you pretty much hit all the issues right there. The high school evaluations are harder because there's more of a discrepancy between the players that we're evaluating, Power 4 type players versus, honestly, other players who aren't even going to play college football. High school is probably the end of their football career, and then in between. So it's hard to see. Sometimes it's hard to see what the level of competition is. Of course, you can see a kid in person, which we had approximately 4,000 kids on campus in our 7-on-7 camps and in our individual camps. That's helpful, or to go see the player actually practice at his high school, or games in the fall, which we didn't do last year, but we could do some of that this year. So those things are helpful, but the best evaluations when they actually get on the field and do our stuff against our players. The college out evaluation, I'd say, is a little bit easier, similar to the NFL free agency, where you can see guys playing at a competition level that's more similar to ours. In some cases, there are guys that are going to play up, but in other cases, not. We have a couple of guys from Penn State and Florida, places like that. So that's that's pretty good competition right there. But we have some other players that have transferred in from, let's say, lower levels. So that's a little bit more challenging. But again, it is what it is, and we have the same opportunity everybody else does. So we're watching the same high school film that every other school's watching. We're watching the same college transfer film that everybody else is watching, and really it's up to us to make the right evaluation for us and how the player fits for us, how he fits for another team in their system. Could be two different things. We have to do what we feel like is best for the development of our team, and that's just not his on-the-field play, but also the other components that he brings, his work ethic, his leadership, his toughness, and so forth. So it's challenging. I say the biggest challenge of all that is just the volume. We're talking about like several thousand high school players. You weren't looking at several thousand players in the draft. And then you have the portal players, which is another couple thousand, and you weren't looking at a couple thousand free agents in the NFL. It was whatever the number was, it usually boiled down to, somewhere in the double digits. So the volume of players is a lot greater than what it was in the NFL.
Last one, Brian.
Kind of piggybacking off that, you added Gio Lopez and Andrew Simpson in that spring portal window. Were you looking to fill specific holes in the spring portal window? How did you evaluate those guys versus what you already had on your roster? And was it different than maybe the first portal window where you try to fill a team?
Yeah. No, I think you hit it right. I think the first portal was we're just trying to find guys to fill the team. The second portal, we're looking for good football players. And, we felt like any position. If the player wanted to come in and compete and we thought he was a good player, then this is the right spot for him. And we'll give everybody an opportunity to compete. Through the course of my career, we've had many, many free agents, low-round draft choices who not only competed and earned playing time, but some became some of our best players. So players that want to come in and compete and have shown enough skill, we'll take those guys, and we've taken plenty of them. We'll see how they do, but those are kind of the two things we're looking for. Anybody who's walking in here feeling like, well, I'm going to be starting this or that, I'm entitled to this, and that's not really the way it's going to work. They're going to have to earn it. But if they want to come in and earn playing time and earn a roster spot and play at Carolina and play in the ACC and, get that kind of profile, then we'll give it to them and we'll see what they can do. Whatever they get, they're going to earn. We're not handing out anything, just like nobody's handing out wins in this conference. You're going to have to go earn them. We're going to have to earn our spots on the field.
Thanks,
All right.
everybody.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Thank you. All right. See you out there.